have our discussion today about the teaching aids in language learning, especially the questions related to what extent does the teaching technology affects the language learning. Okay, good morning, honey. So my daughter is joining. Say hello. I apologize for the interruptions. Part of the show, yeah, work from home. The kids is joining. That's okay. That's okay. All right. To talk about the teaching aids in learning, language learning is actually really problematic in today's era, especially when we come up into technology and language learning. So people are still questioning whether the presence of technology in language classroom is important or effective or not. Okay, so there are many people are still debating about this. However, the trend of the presence of technology in language classroom comes up. It was in 2000, in early 2000s in Europe, especially when they, you know, talked about the presence of computer in language classroom. So it is called as computer assisted language learning, or CALL. Yeah. So I think for those who are planning to write thesis or scriptsy about IT and learning media, I think that you are familiar with the terms CALL. Yeah, CALL. And also more studies and research on the use of technology and also media in order to help students learn and master new language. Okay, even though that there are many people are talking about this issue, and there are many research talking about this issue, however, technology is still considered as a challenge. Okay, even though more people are considering this as an opportunity. Why we consider technology as a challenge and opportunity at the same time? Because when we talk about this, the world has changed. Okay, people change and theories also change. Yeah, and despite these changes, but we need to put underline that actually the most important changes in our society or in our classroom is supposed to occur within the expectations of the students. Okay, what do students expect in order, okay, to become successful learners later on when they graduate from our classroom? Okay, no matter how sophisticated the technology, but if the teachers are not able to utilize the technology in the classroom, meaning that it doesn't meet the expectations of the students. Okay, does it make sense? Yeah. So no matter how good the technology, if it does not meet the students' expectations, then it will not be effective media. So that is why we need to focus on the importance on the abilities of the students later on after the classroom. The second factor in order to talk about whether technology is considered as a challenge and opportunity is that the teacher's role. Okay, let's talk about the abilities required by the English teachers or language, what is that? Language instructors. Okay, whether the computers are relevant with the instructors. Now, for example, you are now joining KKN, yeah, in this semester, and you will be working with teachers or teaching assistants with elementary schools and teachers. When you come up to the real society, are you going to talk about sophisticated technology? Okay, or are you going to talk about the technologies needed by the students? And remember, based on teachers' ability. Now, this is very important in order to meet the expectations between the needs of the students and teachers' ability. Okay, maybe you are from a university's context and you come up to the society, maybe you will be proposing many technologies. So, Bapak Ibu, these technologies are good, these media are good, and this is very good, this is very sophisticated. The problem is that, does the technology you propose needed by the teachers or needed by the students? Or are you sure that the teachers are able to operate the technology? Okay, that is another important considerations. So that is why it doesn't have to be sophisticated. Okay, and it has to meet two aspects. First, the expectations of the students and the ability of the teachers, whether the teachers are able to operate and to implement the technology in the classroom. Okay, so that is why later on when you write your thesis, and you need to consider these aspects in your analysis, whether the technology is needed by the teachers, sorry, the students, and whether the teachers are able to operate the technology. If the teachers are not able to operate technology, it's going to impact to the effectiveness of the language process. And thus your study will not be relevant anymore. Okay, now let's go on. So this is what we call as the technology as a challenge and opportunities. In more specific discussions, okay, when we talk about learning media, because right now when we teach language in our classroom, it's always important to consider the use of learning media. Why? Because learning media is a tool to help the students and teachers in order to send the message to the students, whether they understand or not. Okay, and that is why we need to put these aspects um, before we create technology, and we need to discuss these things. First, there are three perspectives or visions before we go into selecting what is that the media. Okay, what we call is that we have the vision from technologists, so meaning that people who are interested with technology. The second is we are going to talk about the perspectives from social and humanity, whether the social pragmatists have different view. And the last one is the critical uh, practitioners, whether the use of media is important. So that is why by considering these three aspects, then you will be able later on, we will be able to select the most appropriate selections of learning media. So that's why we need to be balanced. Okay, the final expectation should be balanced between these, okay, between this, the socials, and this one, critical analysis. So at the end, we need to know, or we need to make sure that the learning theory that we are going to utilize in our classroom should meet balanced criteria, okay, in terms of the technology, social practice, and the ideology and the connection between teachers and the students. Okay, so let's take a look. This one. So the table shows the discussions of these three perspectives and the impacts to the practice of language learning. Now let's discuss the first perspective here from technologists, meaning people who support technology in the classroom. Yeah, so these aspects most likely talk about whether technology should be included in, what is that? Included in language learning in any context, yeah, or what we call them, istilah bahasa Indonesia, we call them dikit-dikit pokoknya pakai teknologi, ya, dikit-dikit pakai aplikasi. I think that you can see some people who think about this, yeah, in real life, that actually good teaching and learning should include technology. Okay, so I think such people follow this kind of perspective, that actually they focus on the potentials of technology. The idea is simple, that actually The rapid advances in technology suggests pervasive access to and use of technology in very different high-tech lifestyle. So maybe this kind of perspectives, mostly effective in the context of urban community. Yeah, when we talk about university, maybe when we talk about schools in Surabaya, in Jakarta, or in the big cities, or in Malang, or other urban contexts, maybe the use of technology is always encouraged, pushed by the headmaster and the policymakers. So that is why the impacts is that we we must be educated as teachers. What we call as must be educated, meaning that we as a teachers should upgrade our skills. Maybe in the 4 years in our college later on during our college at UNESA, maybe that you will not learn IT into more specific SKS, yeah. However, later on when you become teachers, that you must upgrade your skills. Maybe it doesn't have to be waiting for graduations. Maybe starting from now, you need to upgrade your skills, especially related to the use of technology in the classroom. So that is why it is stated as teachers and researchers, we should be educated. Ya, kita harus melek teknologi, tidak bisa tidak. Ya, so this kind of demand is very emerging and obvious, especially when we deal with high tech lifestyle like schools at the cities or universities. It's always and it's a must. Yeah, even lecturers, especially lecturers from senior lecturers, not all of them are not familiar with Zoom. Okay, but during the pandemic, okay, we are forced to use online platform, meaning that we must be educated, and it is a demand, especially when we teach students from high tech lifestyle. Who are they? Yeah, your generations. You are digital native, yeah, meaning that starting from your kindergarten, you have already been playing with technology. At least you were using internet, television, or even a smartphone. Yeah, if you teach senior high school students right now, meaning they were born in 2005 or something, meaning that when they were kindergarten, they already know BlackBerry. Okay, so meaning that they digital native. And later on, when you become teacher, that you must be educated about technology, yeah, applications or software or many things. There is no any options. Yeah. However, this is second consideration, second perspective. However, it is really hard as teachers or as language trainers to upgrade our skills, yeah, 100%, or to follow everything about technology. Like me, even though that I'm a little bit um, overwhelmed by the fast advancement of technology. Okay, now I start learning about one applications. Now, two or five applications are now coming into the learning context. Yeah, I just learned one software. Two new softwares are coming to the learning context now. The advancement of technology is getting faster and faster. Okay, so that is why, in terms of social perspective, okay, we deal with how human or individuals practice in technology. Like me, even though I'm following the development of technology, it doesn't mean that I am following 100%. So that is why when you talk about Moodle, what is that other uh, Kahoot or other applications, I know, but maybe I cannot operate those applications 100%. It is not perfect because I cannot follow 100%. So that is why it is clear that actually not all individuals are able to follow the use of the technology. So it is not perfect. So that is why when there is imperfect technologies for teachers, meaning that instead of helping the learning process, the use of technology sometimes becoming the constraints in language activities. Yeah, this is the use of technology. What about the context of our social life? When we talk about technology in Surabaya, like even in Surabaya, for example, yeah, um, there are still blackouts in Surabaya. Okay, and it's getting more frequent when we talk about blackouts in smaller area. Imagine that you have already prepared your learning media with a very good animation, with a very good online interactive applications. And when you bring your technology to your classroom, okay, there is a blackout in your school, okay, and you don't prepare the second scenario. What happened then? Okay, so this kind of constraints are actually happen in our society. So that is why the idealists, okay, the ideal perspective about technology is now under question. Yeah, are we going to use technology all the time in our language classroom, or are we going to adjust the use of technology? That actually, yes, technology is there everywhere, very sophisticated, but are we, okay, are we going to use them all, or is it a must, or is it applicable? All right, now that is the questions, yeah, in terms of social, and actually the ideal perspectives from the technologies are not working 100% in our community, even when we talk about communities in a remote area. Don't talk about technology, even they are still uh, you know struggling to get the proper book, yeah, instead of technology. Now it's getting more imminent that actually the issues related to technology and media are still under discussion, and we need to adjust some context, so some adjust, we need to make some adjustments based on the context or situations in our community. So that is why now later on when you create the learning media, you need to consider these aspects. Yeah, so don't come up with online interactive media in your language classroom. For example, when you write your thesis or scripts here, penggunaan media online ini di kelas SD dan sebagainya. Ya pertanyaannya apakah semua gurunya bisa enggak? Kalau enggak ya berarti, nah kayak gitu ya. Jadi this kind of issue, whether your topic is what is that, what you call them, is emerging or not. Yeah, it is urgent or not. If it is urgent, it is needed or not. Kayak gitu ya. So that those considerations should be put as your considerations. All right, now let's move on to the third aspects. The third aspects or the third perspectives is more, what is that? Is more philosophical, because we talk about something critical, that actually whether the use of technology in language classroom, okay, does not limit or does not decrease the connection between teachers and the students. Yeah, why? Because the philosophy of learning, that actually this is the interaction between teachers and students. Yeah, the transfer of knowledge. Okay, it is also about ideology and many things. It is more philosophical. I think we need to discuss this in separate context, yeah, because it is more philosophical. However, I'd like to present some examples about critical values as the implications of the use of technology in language classroom. For example, the connection between teachers and students. Okay, whether when we use technology, okay, whether the technology will replace the role of the teachers or not. Okay, maybe that you might experience many questions in our community, that actually whether teachers will be replaced by Google. Okay, If there is Google, do we still need teachers? Nah, kayak gitu ya. So if there is PowerPoint and YouTube, do we still need teachers in our classroom? If you only focus on the technology and the information, then later on in the future, we don't need teachers. Okay, because well, you don't have to attend to the Zoom right now because you can watch many videos in YouTube about learning media. The problem is that when we talk about the critical values in our community, the connection between teachers and learners is very important in order to shape our characters and ideology. And this is a social interactions because later on when you become teacher that you will become a teacher and you need to interact with your students and you need to engage with them. And this is that cannot be replaced by technology. You transfer the informations and you transfer values, you transfer personal perspectives, and technology cannot use that. Maybe artificial intelligence in the future might replace or might be able to read my mind and will say what I'm thinking. But again, the emotional bond between teachers and students are still needed. Yeah, itu yang pertama. The second is about the ideology. Yeah. Now, there is a very common case. Yeah. Is there any one of you coming from Pondok Pesantren, for example? If you go to Pondok Pesantren, yeah, I am now managing a scholarship, yeah, and it's online scholarship, English scholarship for students senior high school, and there are 6 students who are from boarding school, Islamic boarding school, meaning they are not allowed to bring smartphone. 2021 nggak boleh smartphone. Yeah, but the problem is that at the first time I was curious, kenapa gitu loh. But after knowing the rationale and the explanation that actually, okay, now I understand that the limitation of the use of technology, yeah, is more effective in order to help students learn about the Islamic values and what is that menghafal, memorizing some hadith or many things. Yeah, so they consider smartphones as the distractions of the students. Sampai segitu, and that's true. Kenapa? The problem is that then what about if we need more information about this? Well, all the books and what the holy scriptures, kitab, and many things are already provided by the management of the boarding school. So you don't need that. You don't need smartphones. Everything is there in the boarding schools. Then you learn as many things as possible at the place. Coba bayangin. 2021 lah itu. Yeah. But I cannot say this is something bad because they have their own ideology that actually the use of technology in our daily basis becoming the, what is that? Distractions. Is that right? Now, I would like to ask you to reflect your own experience, whether the presence of smartphone on your desk, yeah, is helpful or is also a distraction. Yeah. Pang ping wae nanti. Is that right? Ya, ini ada tahta yang galau terus kalau nggak diping nanti. You see? So this is true. This is true. That actually technology is somehow becoming a distraction for some people. So that's why it is contradictory with their own ideology and belief. Yeah. Now, when you become teacher, are you going to force technology? Ya nggak bisa dong. Or maybe, okay, Ustadz, maybe we can use technology at the boarding house, but they don't have to use smartphone, but the boarding schools might provide a computer in certain time. And they say, oh yeah, Pak, we have computer lab. Punya lo lab computer, but it is already scheduled. So the students are only allowed to use computer lab on certain time and only for educational purpose. Nah, ada negosiasi di sana ya. If there is a negotiation, meaning that the ideal perspective from technologies that everything should be using technology is now under questions. That actually, well, we don't need to use technology 100%, but we need to use technology wisely, yeah, in certain context or in a very certain time. What about if, well, we don't need technology at all? Contoh, anak playgroup. Yeah, we cannot ask them to use technology. So my little daughter, that's the one who appeared on the screen in the beginning of this class. She is 3 years old and she's like playing with her friends, yeah, in the play group. Just play, even though that it's too early, but the play group is just right in front of my home anyway. So she prefers to come there. What do the teachers provide to guide these kids learn? They never use technology, so they print all the materials. They print all the materials. It's all handwritten. It's about color pen or coloring pen and many things here. Everything should be done manually, only for recording. When the students sing and they will record, okay, and it's be uploaded in the WhatsApp groups of the parents. That's it. So meaning that they try to avoid technology for kids, but instead they would like to encourage the parents to use origami. Jadi bayangkan realia, in later on you will see realia. Realia is the real things. Jadi barang yang asli dibawa ke kelas. So when we talk about cat, ya nggak pakai video, ya kucing dibawa. Gitu ya. So this is what we call as a learning media. And that happens when we talk in the context of play group or many things. So what can we learn from these three perspectives? Okay. Okay. So what can we learn from these three perspectives? This one, that actually our class so far is situated. Okay. So okay, Papa ngajar pakai apa ini? Pakai Zoom. See, this little kids knows Zoom ya already. Coba kita dulu tahu apa, nggak tahu ya. Maybe this little kid is a digital native, yeah. All right, now let's continue. So actually our class so far is situated, okay. It is situated means that everything should be set in an ideal condition. So far, lesson plan, curriculum is already set in a very situated conditions. Everything is situated in a very ideal conditions. However, nah ini juga I'm going to trigger you, yeah. I'm going to encourage you to think of beyond the classroom. The idea of learning media is actually how to provide students information or what is that message that is useful beyond the classroom. Okay, so when we talk about learning media, I think that we are not only talking about the situated learning context here, but actually we need to talk about the context beyond the classroom, the green part. Okay, we need to talk about this green part. For example, that actually when we want to talk about learning media, we need to consider that our students are also active in the internet discourse communities. Yeah, so we cannot consider ourselves as the most or the smartest person in the world, because students are now able to access internet at any time in order to recheck whether the information is valid or not. Ya, itu udah fakta, itu nggak bisa dibohongi ya. Anak sekarang lebih pintar dari kita, even especially when we deal them students with internet discourse communities. They can access internet at any time, meaning they can access information at any time. Okay, so we cannot spoon feed the students anymore. Okay, so guys, ibu kota Indonesia itu adalah Jakarta. Well, we cannot do that anymore because it's already there in Google. Okay, so that's why we need to change our approach when we use technology in the classroom. Second, international communities. When we deal with learning media, please consider that our children or our students are not prepared only for the classroom, but they are prepared to become international communities. Ya, it is something inevitable, udah nggak bisa disanggah lagi. That actually the future students are international communities, ya, global citizens istilahnya. Is that right? So that is why the topics, the trends, the approach that we need to use in our classroom should be adjusted with international context. Itu udah harus. But in terms of the topics, maybe even though it is international topics, then we can compare and reflect with the local wisdom. That is okay. This is part of character building. Yeah. So that's why we need to talk about this. For example, you want to create a PowerPoint. Is a very sophisticated, but you use the background using batik still, yeah, meaning that you combine between international and local wisdom as part of character building. All right, so that is one tips in order to create an internationally accepted media, but still locally wisdom. Now, the next is jobs requirement. Nah, ini yang penting juga, guys. Now, when we talk about learning media, try to introduce the media that are used by real working context later on when you graduate. Jadi, games are not always only about games, but games that prepare the students to learn about their future jobs or their practice. For example, they will use games, but the games will require them to use problem solving or many things. Okay, yeah. The last thing, I think that it is related with the information that I have shared in the Google Classroom last week. It's about 21st century skills. Yeah, if you look at the articles, the skills for 21st century are, well, it's the trend is more pragmatic, meaning we need to adjust our learning media in order to meet the 21st century skills. Nah, itu udah penting itu. What can we learn? First, that we need to reconsider the meaning of our communicative competence, that it is not always about teaching grammar, even though grammar is important, but later on, I think it is more into the application of grammar instead of the formula of the grammar. Maybe you or we as English department students must understand and master grammar, but when later on when we teach English to senior high school students, grammar is important, but it's not becoming the priority because not all of them will become English department students. Okay, so that's why the most important thing is the communications in the modern world. Okay, if you see the senior high school students right now, they are very experts, yeah, in using English in chat box or in chat rooms, even though the language is not standardized, but actually the English is understandable, even though it is slang or what is it, kekinian, but still they use English in their daily communication in chat rooms. Second, we need to introduce new language and literacy skills. Nah, ini penting ini. Apa itu Pak? Nanti dicari, itu tugasnya nanti ya. New language and literacy skills needed for effective communications. Ya. Jadi kita cuma tidak hanya targetnya siswa dapat menyapa. Nah, kayak gitu menyapa, hello, how are you? I'm good. What about you? I'm good, thank you. Itu kan SMA dulu, SMP dulu ya. Hello, good morning, how are you? I'm fine. And you? I'm fine too, thank you. Siapa yang masih dulu gitu waktu SMP? Saya dulu gitu ya. But are you going to use that formula in your classroom in the future? I am not sure. Yeah, and you need to find new skills or new strategy in order to start conversation, asking conditions here instead of how are you? Maybe that hello guys, how's life? How was your holiday? How was your weekend? Nah, kayak gitu ya. those alternatives are becoming new skills in communications, and those skills that must be introduced to the students. Kalau nggak boring, kenapa? Mereka internet community sudah dapat di YouTube itu mereka. I'm fine, and you? I'm fine too, thank you. Itu udah ada di YouTube itu. But we need to introduce something new, yeah, for our students. The last is that we need to be very careful in order to understand the context of our communications and also registers. Register itu cara pengucapannya, and strategic competencies. Strategic competencies itu adalah how to build students' motivations, yeah, in order to invest their time to increase their competency. For example, when we become English language students, yeah, I have questions. Do you read novels or do you read books outside English department books, English outside your major, or do you read only buku-buku tentang pendidikan bahasa Inggris? Jadi your strategic competence does not lie on the English department only, but it's lies on other aspects, ya. Termasuk tadi upgrading technology on many things itu. Jadi your strategic competency will be measured from the skills beyond your main skills. Nah, itu penting sekali, ya. Okay, I think we come to the last one. Next, for the next session, I'm going to talk about the understanding of a good learning media, meaning that it is more practical, and also what the roles of the teachers, okay, in order to create an appropriate learning media, and now how to create teaching instructions. Remember, guys, at the very beginning, I said that the use of technology also lies on the teacher's relevance, meaning no matter how good the technology, if the teachers are not able to utilize the technology in the classroom, and the instructions are not good and are not effective, meaning that the learning will not be effective. So that is why when we talk about learning media, it is not enough talking about the products, okay? But we talk about the instructions, ya. Itu penting sekali. So that is why media and instructions are always connected, and it cannot be separated.